The loudest, the biggest, the brashest. New York is its own character in every play.
The bad thing about New York is the pressure. You're always under pressure.
Here are the stories about those plays. It's New York Accent with Damon Amendolara.
Welcome to the New York Accent Show, everybody, a podcast and a YouTube series that focuses on the great athletes, coaches, sports writers, journalists that have made it from New York or have made it here in New York. And our next guest certainly can say that. Three-time World Series champion with the dynasty New York Yankees of the 90s and 2000s, had a nearly 20-year career as reliever in Major League Baseball, and is now one of the hosts of the Believe in the Bronx podcast alongside longtime sports writer Pete Caldera. New episode is coming out about Yankees Old Timers Day. He was a Yankee. He was a Met as well, amongst many teams that he played for in his career. Joining us here on New York Accent is Mike Stanton. Mike, how you doing?
DA, I'm doing well, man. Yeah, I just got back last night from Old Timers Day. Was my first time back. I can't believe it's taken me so long to get back, but it won't be my last. Had an absolute blast. The Yankees did it the way the Yankees always do it. They did it up right. We didn't actually play a game, which I was a little upset about that. I was looking forward to getting back on the field, but just a great on-field ceremony, a great video tribute. Most of the guys were there. It was really cool to catch up with everyone because I haven't seen a lot of them in, decades. So it's been, it was an absolute blast of a weekend, even if the travel really stunk.
Is it ever weird to remember when you were playing and then looking at the old timers that came in for Old Timers Day and now swapping roles and being like, wow, now I'm the guy that they're looking at as Old Timers Day?
It was weird. To tell you the truth, that was one of those things that I didn't know how I was going to react. But I'll tell you what, like I said, I hadn't seen those guys in easy 10, some of them even 20 years. But as soon as you got back, we have such a tight camaraderie back then. We played so well together. We were together so much. We knew each other so well. 5 minutes in, man, it was like we were never apart. So it was something that I'll cherish for a very long time. And it was just great to see the guys. It was great to reminisce about the 98 team, best team to ever walk on the field.
You were part of such an interesting corner of New York Yankees history. You played from 97 through 02, and in that run is when you guys made all of those World Series and, winning 3 consecutive, getting back in 2001. And it was a time where, it was just prior to social media, but you guys had so much scrutiny, so much attention, and so much pressure because you were the Beatles of baseball at that time and doing it in New York, where obviously the attention is highest. So when you look back, what are some of the things you take away from being part of that part of Yankees history, which is now still the last time they were truly a multi-year champion and dynasty?
Yeah, I look at it. It is the last baseball dynasty. We've had some good teams. Houston Astros right now are in their golden era of baseball. But to win 3 World Series in 4 and 5 years and go to 5 and 6 years was truly an incredible feat for that team. And we did it with, I missed the 96 team. I actually was on the Texas Rangers, who they went through to get that title. But the core group of guys that were there really was, stuck around. Yeah, there was always players that come and go, but it really was a special time. And, when I look back, yeah, I remember games here and there, but it's more the camaraderie. It's more, I used to go to lunch with Scott Brocious and Andy Pettit quite often. And, the first time we were all 3 there it was like, hey, it's the old lunch groups back together. Things like that. That's what you really remember. It's not so much the games itself. Yeah, you remember World Series games and maybe a game here and there during the regular season, but it's more, the friendships that we built. And when you make a true friend, in your heart, you love them, they love you. You don't have to spend all the time together. You can spend some time apart, and then when you get back together, it's just like old times.
It strikes me that, yes, winning creates bonds, and what you guys accomplished certainly can strengthen bonds. But those Yankees teams always felt to me to be really close, apart from just the winning, that the chemistry was always really good. The knowledge of each other's roles, the respect of the leaders, the respect of the veterans that had been there. It always seemed to us on the outside that, boy, that the Yankees have such a tight group, and you don't hear about any friction or guys talking about one another being maybe about their own ego or something. What you played in a lot of teams. Was it unique, the chemistry that those Yankees teams had?
It was. And it wasn't that there weren't any egos. Of course there were egos. It wasn't that we always got along. I mean, you don't put, 30 plus type A personalities in a room every day with competition for 9 months and get along every single day. But the key to that team was we all had the same common goal, which was when we walked on the field, whether I was mad at the guy standing next to me or not, when you walked on the field, we all knew what our job was. And we were going to do whatever it took to win that day. That was, our motto that year. And our motto through that run was, we play today, we win today. That was it. That was the motto. And whatever it took for us to win, that's what we did. Joe Torre managed that way. We played that way. We believe that was our job. Our job was not to play baseball. Our job was to win.
The Subway Series in 2000 was probably the weakest of the teams that won a World Series in terms of win-loss record, where you guys were middle of the season. But then you turned the flip, you switched the switch in October and buried the Mets in 5. Were you guys specifically honed in on this one? We've got to win, even if it's not our best selves, because it's a Subway Series?
Well, you're really not ranking, when you're playing, you're really not ranking yourself to previous years or anything like that. You're worried about job at hand. And we didn't think it really was, I don't want to say we didn't think it was a big deal, because we all knew it was a Subway Series. We knew how big this was going to be for the city and just for baseball in general. But there were a few statements made by the Mets. I remember one, I think it was Benny Agbayani, actually called us old or over the hill or something. And, when you're playing the multiple time world champions, you really don't want to poke the bear, because the bear may wake up. And, not that we really needed additional motivation, but that kind of raised our eyebrows. And at that point, we were still a very good team, a formidable team. And we took care of business in that 2000 World Series.
You crushed the Padres in 98, the Braves in 99, the Mets in 2000. And then by 01, a lot of the core starting to age, and some of the guys will end up retiring after the season. And yet you guys summon it yet again, 95 wins and back into the playoffs, having won the AL East. But right before you get to the playoffs is when September 11th happens. And
Right.
It being the 22nd anniversary of 9/11, we wanted to chat with you about that experience. What do you remember from that day? And of course, just, what it was like to be in the city, in New York City at that time.
Yeah. To tell you the truth, it was a beautiful morning. I was living in northern New Jersey. A cool front had just come through. It had blown out all the humidity. It was absolutely beautiful. And, my wife and I were just sitting at home. The kids were at school and, just waiting to go to the ballpark. And then she got a phone call from a friend of hers that there was something going on. So we turned on the news and, we saw the plane hit the second tower, and we were just in shock. How do you react in stuff like, this is horror movie stuff. So, the first thing we did was we went and got our kids out of school. Why? Because we just wanted to be together. And it was a crazy time, because we didn't know exactly what was going to go on. I think we took 11 days off of baseball. And to tell you the truth, we didn't know if we were going to play. We didn't know what the right thing was to do. And when Major League Baseball, we had some meetings, we had some phone calls. And when they decided to come back, I think it was 11 days later, we knew, So they kind of did introductions. They did a moment of silence. And I think we started back in Chicago against the White Sox on the South Side. And when we heard the response, we weren't even in New York. The Mets, we just picked up our schedule right where we were on that day. We didn't turn the schedule back. Those were games that were just gone. You knew exactly where we were supposed to be. We were supposed to be part of the healing process. We were entertainers now. Yes, we were baseball players. We were athletes, but our job was to help everyone get their mind off of, the horrors of the world, at least for a few minutes, maybe for a couple hours. And the response from the fan bases across Major League Baseball, across the nation, they were absolutely remarkable. And we knew at that point, that's exactly where we needed to be. We needed to be on the field to try and help the healing process, to try and give just a little bit of a break, maybe a little bit of happiness in a world that had just been turned upside down.
I remember thinking as a New Yorker, this tragedy was all around us. You couldn't help but just feel it from a very intimate place because people were passing away. People that you knew, neighbors, family members, friends, colleagues. You saw the funeral processions, you saw the ambulances, you saw the smoke still rising from ground zero, wherever you were in the Tri-State area. And then going to a ball game when game started up, I thought it was hard to know whether to cheer or not. Was it okay to not be mourning? I can't imagine what it was like to compete at that level. You guys have to be on such a high focus. Was it weird going to the ballpark and thinking like, we've got to care about winning a baseball game?
Maybe right at the beginning, because like I said, we didn't know if that was the right thing to do. And looking back on it, it was. But in a situation like that, what's right and wrong? I mean, no one had ever been through anything like this. And we, like I said, I mean, there was talk about canceling the rest of the baseball season. But I think, being Americans, and the camaraderie that actually caused. I mean, you want to talk about bringing a nation together. My goodness, that's exactly what happened. Once you got back into it, you got back into competition. People they started the cleanup. You could tell, okay, it's time we're not going to let this knock us down. They're not going to beat us by having a terror situation like this. No, we're Americans. We're going to stand up. We're going to stand next to each other. And that's kind of what happened. So, once we got back into the flow, once you started playing a couple games, really after the first game, yeah, you're still remembering because even when we were away from the ballpark, we were going through the same thing everybody else was. I mean, we knew people that had passed. If we didn't know people directly, the chain was not very long till you got to someone that did know, and your heart went out to them, and it was just one of those things that, once we got back on the field, if you remember, even across the nation, even for teams that weren't in the playoffs, that weren't not even in New York, you looked at it and it was the outcry that we saw, the emotion that we saw, the passion that we saw for baseball may have never been higher, just simply because it gave all the fans across the nation, all the people across the nation, an outlet to let go of their emotions because there was such an emotional time in this country.
That's exactly right. And when Piazza hits the home run against the Braves, it was like every Mets fan felt
in New York. Yes.
Yeah. Crazy. This is a moment to finally, like you said, give some of those emotions that you've been holding in. You give it some voice and kind of exhale. And then for you guys, you go on this amazing run. And it does not seem like you are a charmed Yankees team because you start the playoffs down 0-2 against the A's. And now you've lost the first two at Yankee Stadium, have to go to Oakland for game 3. And it's like, wow, the upstart A's, they've got the dynasty on the ropes and this is going to be it. And then 1-0, 7th inning, and Jeter makes the flip play. And it just seems to switch everything. what do you remember about Jeter's moment?
It was such a frustrating series because, the A's were good. Yeah, they were young. They had Giambi at first base, and he was destroying the baseball. It was just one of those times that, we were trying to grind it out. We were probably trying too hard. That was probably the problem. But we just could not score a whole lot of runs against those guys. And Mike Mussina was dealing that game. I mean, he was – and, we had the slight lead, okay, if we can win this game, we can get on a roll. And then Derek did, well, what Derek does, that was it was a situation that probably only came up once or twice, maybe 3 times in the year. And you guys know the story that him and Joe Torre in spring training had said, a ball in the right field corner, just kind of migrate to the middle of the field. You never know what's going to happen. Shortstop's not really doing anything at that time. He sees the overthrow from Shane Spencer and makes the incredible play. And that was really something, through this long run that we had, to go through it, 3 World Series in a row, winning 4 of 5, going 5 of 6. It wasn't like it was a cakewalk all the time. We had our trials and tribulations. We had our tough times. We had teams that pushed us. But, we had such a good core group of guys that believed in each other. It's one thing to go into a situation and say, okay, I believe in myself to get this job done. I can make this pitch. I can get this base hit. That's not what makes a good team. What makes a good team is when you can trust the guy standing next to you and know that he can do it if you don't. And that actually takes pressure off yourself. That allows you to go ahead and relax. And a lot of times you're going to perform better in that situation. That's really what happened. It was just one of those crazy runs that you look back, and to tell you the truth, even though I lived through it, every pitch, every inning, every game, every year, you still look back at it and go, did all that really happen? Because now being 25 years from the 1998 team, I'm just a fan of it now also.
That series is wild because the A's have all of that great young pitching talent. They threw Mulder out in game 1, shut you guys down. Hudson in game 2, they won 2-0. In game 3, they had Zito. Yep. It's 1-0. And then the Jeter flip play kills that rally that they could have taken the lead or at least gotten a run on the board. You guys end up winning 1-0. So now you have one on the board. You win game 4 in Oakland as well in a blowout. And then it's game 5 back at Yankee Stadium. And it starts to feel like, wow, New York, the rebound after 9/11. This is 1 month after the towers. So it's still
right.
So raw. It is still so raw. And yet here's kind of this magical Yankee run starting to take place. So the flip play happens. Game 5 back in the house that Ruth built. You guys win that game. Okay, now you're on to the ALCS where you take on a 116-win Mariners team.
Yeah.
Set the modern record for wins. It's like, well, now, the old guys finally met their match. And it was the opposite. You guys were the aggressors in that series. Going into the series, did you feel like, hey, we kind of got the mojo back?
I think so. I mean, I think the momentum after coming back from 2-0, I think that the momentum had definitely, I don't want to say switched because they had a lot of momentum also. But it was one of those things that, the snowball started rolling down the hill and you're just simply not going to stop it. And we took care of business pretty good in that series. We knew that they were a good team, but that was one of those situations that at that point, once we got by Oakland, we won the 3 straight to win that series. We were a team of destiny.
So you guys end up getting the Mariners, knock them out in 5, and now you're on to the World Series. Wow, the Yankees are back in the World Series. But here is a very formidable team themselves, the Diamondbacks. And they have this great two-headed monster at the top of the rotation in Schilling and Randy Johnson. You guys have to start on the road in Arizona. You end up losing both of those games. 9-1 in game 1, 4-0 9-2. You've mustered 1 run in 2 games against those 2 guys. And it's like, wow, again, the Yankees, the hopes are flickering. And then you come back to the Bronx. And again, it's like the magic. It's 2001. It's a month and a half now after the towers. People are still trying to, process all their feelings, but it's just like, oh my God, the Yankees are representing everything. And at that point in time, you guys have become a national favorite. Everybody in the country was rooting for you because you represented New York and the rebirth and what the country had just gone through. Those 3 games in the Bronx are all outrageous. 2-1 against the Diamondbacks in a win in game 3, 4-3-10 in game 4, 3-2-12. That's the Mr. November game for Derek Jeter. That just every night is like, how are they going to win this night? What do you remember from that 3-game set where you took the lead in the 0-1 World Series?
It was crazy. I mean, I know that's not a strong enough word, but you said it, that we became the nation's favorite team, maybe for the first time ever, and maybe never again, because the Bronx Bombers, we were always the evil empire. It was, you go back, the Bronx are burning back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, it was we were always the team that, the big payroll, the big egos, the big city, love to hate. And, listen, teams love to have us come into their cities, because we packed the ballparks. Every place we went, ballparks were full. Most of the time they were to boo us. Now, there were a lot of Yankee fans out there also, but that's fine. That's you voicing your opinion. And that's what being an American is all about. And, you got to love the passion, but those games were absolutely incredible. The home runs, looking back on it now, knowing what's happened and being so far away from it again, you had to feel for Bong Young Kim. He was the one that was giving up all the home runs, and he was never really the same after that. It was, walk-off home runs, game-tying home runs, lefties, righties, it didn't matter. Just an absolutely remarkable turn of events to win those 3 games. And to tell you the truth, after we won those 3 games, we felt like, okay, we got this. We got this. We go back to Arizona up 3-2. All the momentum is on our side. But it wasn't meant to be. The storybook ending, well, it didn't end the way everybody wanted it to.
It was wild, those 3 games. I mean, there's the Tino home run, there's the Jeter home run, there's huge hits by Brocious, et cetera. Just like, there's just no way that these guys can be denied. And then you have 2 chances to wrap it up in Phoenix, and unfortunately you couldn't do so. The game 6 that got away from you guys, and then game 7 was Luis Gonzalez's bloop. And again, Mariano's coming in. You figure, okay, this is over. They're going to win this magical World Series. As you said, the Yankees have become a sympathetic figure, which they had never been in maybe the history, as you said. And you guys were America's team. I wonder how you remember this. Do you remember that season fondly, or is it heartbreaking because you guys didn't finish the job like your other titles?
I think you could say both. I mean, obviously it did not end the way we wanted it to. And you know what? Maybe everyone cheering for the New York Yankees wasn't meant to be. That's why maybe we didn't win. That's not how it's supposed to be. The Yankees are always the bad guys, and that's fine. That putting on the pinstripes. But yeah, you still look at it fondly. I mean, it's still one of the most incredible World Series we've ever had. And I was blessed enough to play in many. And Randy Johnson coming back on no rest the next day after pitching game 6, you could see the guys, him come open the bullpen door, him coming out, and you could almost just see us deflate a little bit. Even though he had absolutely nothing, he was still Randy Johnson. And, it was crazy. It was crazy that we weren't able to, and of all people, who knows when the last time Mo had blown a save. He had been so good, unanimous Hall of Famer, and deserved it. There's been a lot of guys that probably deserved it, but Mo was definitely one of those. And he was also one of our best fielders on the team. He played center field. I know later in his career, they did a lot of talk about how good of a center fielder he was, how he ran around the outfield. That's how he did his conditioning. He ended up hurting his knee right at the end of his career. He was one of the best athletes we had on the team, and he fielded the ball on the pitcher's mound. He was like a shortstop. And he had made that play so many different times. He was always so calm, cool, and collected. But footwork wasn't quite right. Grip wasn't quite right. If everything happens the way it happened, hundreds of times in the past, Gonzalez doesn't even come up to bat. The game is over. But it wasn't meant to be. It doesn't take away from anything that we did. It doesn't definitely, the Arizona Diamondbacks, we made them earn it. That's for sure. But yeah, it was just one of those things that the storybook ending just wasn't quite there.
It's such a special role that you hold in American sports lore, and specifically New York sports lore. Those Yankee teams are so beloved. You were such an important part of a bullpen that was consistently one of the best in baseball, if not the best. So many high leverage situations you got into, especially at the old stadium in the Bronx in October, all those moments. And, you got to be part of 3 championships and multiple runs of the World Series as well. You got to feel, and then coming back for Old Timers Day, like what a charmed life for the timing for you to have been part of such a remarkable piece of baseball history. Yeah.
I mean, blessed way more than I ever deserved. That's for sure. It's again, I look back on it, and, I went through it, a lot of the stuff that I remember, like I said before, it's not really games. It's clubhouse. It's hanging out, shagging fly balls in BP. It's going to lunch with the guys and just the camaraderie. But, to go back and really look and remember each individual situation, is really cool, and it's something that I'll continue to do. And because I hadn't really done it, I was always, when Derek said in his Hall of Fame speech, one of the problems he had, he wished he could have been in the moment more and remember, kind of remember what was going on. I was the same way. I wasn't about, what was going on, what happens next. And even once I retired, it was the same thing. Okay, let's figure out what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Whether it's broadcasting, whether it's coaching, whatever, let's see what's going on. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep pushing. But it's also kind of cool to be able to step back and look and remember exactly what went on, and the emotions and the feelings we had at those times, and be able to enjoy them, even if I really couldn't do it at the moment. I played with Jay Bell with the Mets, and Jay was he's a baseball lifer. Jay, even at the end of his career, he's getting he was beating the clubhouse guys to the ballpark. And he had walked up to me one time and he goes, did you believe what's happened? And I had played against Jay when he was a Pirate, when I was Atlanta Brave, and we had gone back and forth. And he actually had come up to me late in that series in 2001, and just passing on the field. He goes, "Can you believe this world's?" I had a tough time remembering what was going on because I was focused on what was going on now. But now afterwards, to take a step back and look and see exactly what happened and kind of reminisce and kind of enjoy and go through the emotions again. That was something that we did at Old Timers Day. They did a great video tribute on the board, and I didn't pull a tear, but I came close, just remembering what went on, and that was really us doing it.
Yeah, it's an amazing slice of baseball history, Yankees history, New York history, and it's American history, really, in general, with 9/11 and the 2001 series. So really cool that you could stop on by. For those that want to relive some of Old Timers Day, Yankee fans, Believe in the Bronx podcast with Pete Caldera and Mike Stanton. They've got an episode coming out from Yankee Stadium where they recorded it for Old Timers Day. So that's coming out all places that you get your podcast, Believe in the Bronx pod. And